Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rational Female Podcast. And today got the usual panel, and we're going to be talking about whether or not women should be drafted. I'm not sure what my view is on this. As on the one hand, I think that yes, there's a reason why women shouldn't necessarily be in the military. We're the ones who bear the children. We have different bodies, different needs. At the same time, if we want equality, then surely women should be drafted. So I'll give it to the panel. What do you guys think?
Okay, so I have a lot to say, but the very first thing I want to say is it is not the position of the men's rights movement that we want women to be drafted. Overall, our ideal scenario is no draft at all. Now, if there is going to be a draft, it should be gender neutral. And I can actually address some of the things you brought up. So, in terms of physicality and athleticism, there are many, many roles in the military that do not require bulking lots of heavy machinery. You could be a drone operator. I know a woman who was an ambulance driver in the Korean War. She was a Marine. She's in her 80s now. She's almost 90. Total badass. There are light infantry roles that you're not lugging around heavy gear. A woman could be the radio operator. A woman could be a scout. A woman could be light infantry carrying extra magazines for the men. There are things like being on a mortar team, maybe on a mortar team, but certainly a drone operator, certainly an engineer, combat engineers, logistical roles. There are many, many, many roles in the military that do not require upper body strength. There are many roles in the military where being smaller and more flexible would actually mean you're better at the job than a man. A female sniper can take cover more easily, can hide more easily. And in fact, there were many women in the Soviet Union who were full-time snipers, and they were very, very deadly. Female soldiers did, in fact, fight in the Soviet Army in World War II, and I believe I have this correct. Almost every single of the anti-air battery soldiers on the rooftops in the Battle of Stalingrad were women, or at least the vast majority. Now, another argument I commonly hear about biology is, oh, well, women can have babies, and you only need one man to impregnate 100 women. The reason why this argument is flawed is because now all of those children will be half siblings, and in a couple generations, they'll be so badly inbred that they'll be unable to reproduce. Studies consistently find that the best way for a population to grow is to have a 50-50 split of men and women. And one man and 100 women is actually not enough. You really need a minimum of 500 each to not run into the problems of inbreeding. Also, is one man going to take care of 100 women when they're 8 months pregnant? No. So there's lots of reasons why, not that we want women to be drafted, but that if there is going to be a draft or conscription, it should be gender neutral. And in fact, many countries do conscript women, and all the problems that people talk about don't seem to be a problem. Women are drafted in Norway, women are drafted in Israel, and successfully. Well, I guess you could debate whether or not you think it's a success. I think conscription is bad. I think it's harmful. I don't like it. But we don't see these extra problems for women that the critics often espouse. So that's the position of 99% of men's rights activists that I know. We don't like the draft. Do we want to draft women? No, we do not. If there is going to be conscription, should it at the very least be equal? Yes. And the National Coalition for Men, which Tim and I are members of, we have, believe it or not, been joined by now the National Organization for Women, which is the largest feminist group in the United States, in a lawsuit over selective service, which is a draft in the US. And when I actually first met Harry Crouch all those years ago, 15 years ago, he wanted me to be the plaintiff in the suit, but I had already signed up, so I couldn't do it. But I would have, though.
Okay. Well, yeah. Blueorange expresses the standard outlook, and it does appear to be logical. It does seem simple enough. If men will be drafted, then women must be drafted also. Otherwise, it's not equal. And women in the military, it's pretty much a disaster. When you take women beyond just the support roles or certain specific positions, just put them in the general population of the military. See, anywhere women go, they bring their innate power with them. And pretty soon you got political correctness, you got everybody walking on eggshells, you got everything being a kinder, gentler army, which I'm not sure is a good idea. And you've got women bring with them just this force. See, every time we reach for unisex equality, what I think we end up getting more of is female only equality, where quotas are set up, affirmative actions are set up, so the women are advantaged in all ways, and requirements get dumbed down so that women can have equality. Let me read you something, a bit of I assembled a little bit of research here. This comes from a woman named Sandra Rippey. She's a commander in the U.S. Navy, and she was interviewed by a guy named Jack Kammer. And first of all, she goes on about how angry the women are and how anti-male they become and how obsessed with their own victimhood they become. And so it splits the army into two parts, male and female. But of course, an army requires cohesion. And why are they bringing all these complaints? Well, because it brings about quotas and other. So in other words, the men have to go through certain gradations to their surface warfare pin or a submarine pin or their aviator wings. The women are looking for and being granted shortcuts only because they're women. So it takes the men probably a solid 3 or 4 months at sea with one liberty break, busting their butts with the books, taking their qual cards, going through all these different board levels up to their commanding officer to get their surface warfare officer pin. Meanwhile, the women, on the other hand, have been known to be awarded these pins in their spare time. It's a quota thing. They're just cranked out to them. Also, there's everywhere women go, then sexual harassment accusations fly. And along with them comes these traits that the men must endure. Videos, it says that she says the videos cast a typical male service member as basically this brutish predator who at all times would stare at, look at, suggest sex to any female in his vicinity. The men looked like prowling tomcat, which I didn't appreciate. The videos didn't apply to the situation that I've ever seen. And I thought that the level of sensitivity among the women was already so high that they were walking around like raw wounds waiting to be struck. You got all these kinds of issues, whenever they're going to be sent to some dangerous assignment. So far, about 40% of the women that are deployed into a combat zone, they just go and get pregnant and they exempt themselves. I mean, and then when the pregnancy has served its purpose, they usually just abort it. It's just a mess. It's just a mess. And who is it benefiting? I think that the fantasy is, the dream is as of the day when battle-scarred woman will say to man, I had no idea. I'm so sorry for proclaiming myself the victim and hogging all the empathy to myself. If I'd only known what you men have endured, I never would have complained this way. I'm so ashamed. Can you ever forgive me? I think that's the seeing woman get her comeuppance is a major part of the subconscious or semi-conscious motivation here. And I just don't think it'll happen, because women at half the effort and a fraction of the danger, female soldiers will and already do receive full combat pay while riding the quota escalators to awards, pins, medals, prestige, fighter piloting, officer status, job training. Given all these realities, on what basis will the military woman be brought to her knees begging forgiveness? I don't see it. And And you know, in the past, as brutal and terrible it was for men alone to suffer the military, at least they got full credit. I mean, as soon as any women at all got involved, you know, like in the Vietnam War, what was it, 56,000, nearly 60,000 men, 58,000 was it, died in American U.S. Troops.
But the problem is they don't get the credit because feminists try to steal the credit by saying
exactly my point. Yeah.
And by the way, let me just say, of the 55,000 U.S. soldiers who died in Vietnam, 1/3 were drafted, and 60% was younger than the age of 22.
Yeah. So, but they were all men. Only 8 women died, and yet the thing is, what I'm getting at is all these pundits, all these newscasters, all these whatever that are going on about the brave men and women who fought and died in Vietnam. You see, it's just, you know, at least men used to get the full credit, even if they got the full blame for war. At least they got the full credit. Now they still get the full blame, and they don't get the credit anymore.
Yeah, and the problem is feminists try to steal the credit by saying women weren't allowed to be in the army. Women weren't allowed to fight, when the reality is that it's always been a protection. Nobody wants to fight. Nobody wants to be drafted. Nobody wants to go to war. It is a protection. It is a privilege. It is something that society grants you by not drafting you.
That's right.
Historically, the reason for that has probably been because women can get pregnant, and no one wants to send a baby a pregnant woman into. So the pregnancy thing has been an issue, but now we have birth control, so it's not the same issue, right? I think so. My position is that women should be drafted, but they need to be on birth control. So I think it's like, however, mandatory birth control. As soon as you're drafted, they should be on birth control. And in terms of the position, as Blueorange said, they're going to be positions that women can do if it is that the evaluation is that they are inferior or that they will cause problems in this position, then you just need to put women in other positions. The point is, though, for moral reasons, I think if men are drafted, women need to be drafted, because the entire society should feel the weight of any war. Both men and women need to feel the weight of it, and both men and women need to fear it. So society shouldn't want to go to war, and both sexes have to be drafted. But I can understand that women wouldn't do the same amount of work as men. And it would be nice if women would understand that that's a privilege that is granted based on...
I know, it would be.
Yeah.
But talking about morale, the males just note how privileged the females are. And, you know, let's talk about hazing for a moment. For time immemorial, soldiers hazed each other. Why? It wasn't just to be sadistic. The soldiery had to know, who can you trust? Who's got your back? It's a matter of life and death. You have to know who of these men around you are tough, which ones are strong, which ones are gonna hold their weight. You have to know this, but you cannot haze women. That becomes harassment. Then there's just issue after issue after issue, and some soldier watches some female soldier. She's polishing her nails and so on, and he goes, I don't want to be in the troop with her. Actually, she hasn't got my back.
I have to push back on that a bit. If you just saw the screen that I shared, women didn't officially have combat roles in Iraq and Afghanistan, but a lot of them had roles where they were in combat, such as like translator, for example. There were absolutely women who pulled the trigger in Iraq and Afghanistan and were respected by their male comrades. So while what you're saying is true to an extent, women can and do fight in battles effectively. And that's happened in the U.S. history. That happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. More Iraq and Afghanistan, but that did happen. There were women who were on the front lines who participated in firefights and who performed well.
Well, remember the hoopla about Jessica Lynch? She was a school teacher.
I remember.
Supposedly, she was a G.I. Jane, and all this massive hype came up about her doing battle and emptying her gun and fighting alongside the men. And then it turned out that she spent that whole episode with her head between her knees, and the men protected her, which is another factor. I mean, you got these.
That's one person lying. That's just one person lying. I don't think that's fair.
She wasn't lying. Actually, it was everyone around her that.
Well.
She came out. The only reason we know it was a farce was because she insisted she would not go along with the lie. She was honest. But yeah, I mean, men and women.
I just want to quickly say something completely off topic. So normally on StreamYard, when the stream is going, I can see the comments, and I just put testing, and I've spent like the last 15 minutes just just being a bit distracted and distressed by this. The chat is working because I can see on the YouTube page,
yes,
but I can't put any comments on StreamYard. So this might have happened before. It's just very, very distressing for me. But to contribute a bit to the conversation, having listened, I actually think that I don't think women should be drafted because it seems like it could cause too many problems. And I think if we just go from like biology, if women are the ones who get pregnant, and you can say women go on birth control, but the thing is, right, the military is no place for that. The military is where you got to be very stoic and you got to just think, I'm fighting. So I know historically there have been, as someone probably mentioned, mistakes if I wasn't paying attention because I was distracted, but there have been cases of women being in combat. The Dahomey warriors were a very fierce warrior tribe. I think they were West African. But I think that in a modern context, it makes more sense for women to not be going out to war. I don't see why women should be going out to war because, physically. And also there's this guy I follow actually. Well, I don't really watch him anymore. His name is Simon Webb. He's a historian. He made a video saying that how like when men are in a room and then women come, the dynamic shifts. Men tend to be a bit softer. So I don't know if we should have women in the military. I'm not even sure if we should have women being firefighters or police officers. Like, I'm inclined to say yes, of course, if a woman wants to do that. But I also wonder, why should women do that? Like, women are physically different to men. I don't know if women should be doing those jobs, but that's just my thoughts anyway.
Well, I mean, what about any role at all? Support role, logistics role?
Sure, there's lots of support roles that women are ideal for. But then you're still talking about women being an elite and special class that is not subject to the front lines and being slaughtered.
But would you agree that they could be drafted to do, as he said, they could still be drafted, right?
Well, to do like admin work, yeah, that's different. I mean, I don't think women should be fighting. I don't think women should be on the front line. I think that's
correct. But again, I stress that that's creating a situation where the women have this very special privilege.
Right, but that privilege needs to be acknowledged. I also agree. I think the main thing with the whole draft issue is that it is so unfair that feminists use something that is a privilege. It's like when you say wet is dry, dry is wet, peace is war, war is peace, or whatever. Oh. They use something that is clearly and objectively a privilege. It is a privilege not to be drafted to die. It is privilege not to go to war to die. And then they say, actually, women weren't allowed to be drafted, and that's so unfair.
Oh, it's appalling. It's appalling.
So from that perspective, if there are women who want to go to war, by all means, take birth control and please go to war. Because who would want to go to war?
Sorry, let me ask you though. In terms of police officers, the reason why I think a police department would want to have a female officer is, what if you have to strip search a female suspect, or overlooking a women's prison, which I know in the UK is something that's not going to exist much longer. I could see how for certain calls I would want to have a female officer on hand. Especially, imagine if you have to pat down a 16-year-old girl. What male police officer wants to do that?
Yeah, that's a fair point. But I will say though, and I want to say this, I know this is going to be a bit contrarian, but I don't think women not going to war is a privilege. I think it's a practicality. You know, historically, women died in childbirth. I think that, you know, saying women don't have to go to war, there's other things that women have
Yeah,
to have been subjugated to. I don't think, because I don't personally believe in this idea that, like, because I think now with the anti-feminism, some of it is gearing towards men are oppressed. And personally, I don't hold that view. I'm not an MRA. I just want to make that clear for the record. I think that
yeah,
men and women have both faced struggles, and I think that there's a practicality. Like, if I think, for example, me versus my brother, I know for a fact, based on how my brother thinks as a man, he would be like, no, Zarina, you stay here. You just stay at home. Let me go out and deal with this. It's this kind of male instinct. Like, I can't see my dad and brother being okay with me and my mum going out to fight in war, like, because that's the
yeah.
way they think. They have this masculine way of thinking. It's like, you
It's
know, like my
instinctual.
brother, he's very hands-on. Like, he'll calm, he'll like, for example, when he comes to my flat to do his laundry because he doesn't have a washing machine, I'm always like, oh, should I call you an Uber? Are you okay? He's like, no, it's fine. Let me just go. Let me just do it. He just gets on with things. And I think that there's a very manly thing. I think that somebody mentioned this actually, and this is really the main thing we should be gearing at. War is bad. We shouldn't be allowing war in general. It's not right to allow people to go out and die, period. It's a horrible, horrible thing. I don't think that, you know, men, this idea now that men are built to suffer or endure hardship, I don't think we should be glorifying that. I don't think we should be glorifying death or murder or bloodshed. And this is exactly what Warren Farrell says in The Myth of Male Power. And I fully agree. Like, we associate dying with honor, and it's horrible. So, you
Mhm.
know, I just made a video of mine went out, I think yesterday, about Titanic and how this idea of male sacrifice being tied to honor. And I think that is the root problem. It's not so much about the problem is associating being a man with death. Like, yes, being a man comes with hardship and sacrifice, does, but it shouldn't equate to death.
That's what MRAs call male disposability.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The problem with saying we should just not have war is people like Vladimir Putin exist.
Yeah, I know.
They're gonna make it. You know, he doesn't give a fuck.
Okay, but in I was gonna bring up that point before as well, and now I totally agree that we should never have war, especially in context with everything that's going on today. It's crazy. I don't agree with whatever. I think America shouldn't be in a war there with Iran and all that. So I'm not agreeing with war at all. But I was gonna say earlier, within the context of how war happens today, or we don't know what the future is, but if okay, how to say this properly, like what Zarina just said there with it's not a, I don't necessarily agree with that, but some things that she said pertain to traditional society, and I agree. I come from the traditional mindset. I agree with that. But you also have to remember that with the technology that we have today, traditional society was traditional for a reason. Technology got better. War technology got better. So war is not the same as it was in the past. And it's not really just about brute force or whatever. So I think we also have to always remember that as the technology gets better, the gender thing becomes less real. This bridge between genders become so. Yeah, in a sense, if we knock ourselves back 500 years and we have no birth control, we have no technology, we have no rockets, we have no airplanes or whatever, then yeah, women probably can't be in war, and I get it, right? I'm back to traditionalists, but we also have to cater for the fact that we have like a lot of technology, I guess, in war today, and yeah, women can do those things. So it's complicated, but I don't agree with
It's
anybody.
very complicated. So what do you do about all these men in the military that are being accused of sexual harassment?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And I think that's a good case to be made for saying that women shouldn't be in the military, actually, because that is definitely going to cause a lot of problems.
It does cause a lot of problems. We just don't hear that much about it. You have to dig
I don't think that's a
under the
reason not
surface
to
to
draft
hear.
women. Look, men could complain about each other in terms of sexual harassment. There's so many things that can happen.
But it's not, because the thing is, right, if you got women accusing men of sexual harassment, like, this is actually an argument people put forward to say whether or not women should be in the workplace, which I think is too extreme. I'm not against women being in the workplace, but in terms of military, because again, in military, you got to be focused. You got to be like you know, and if
And
we've
you
got
have
all
to
these
be
men,
unified. You're a
yeah,
unified fighting force. You can't be divided, you know,
I was
into
gonna
male and
ask, right?
female as these divisions, and if the females are going to be so damn hostile toward the males, and it's unreal. So I mean, even a senior male officer has to walk on eggshells lest
Yeah, it's not
some
good.
female junior officer accuses him of something.
And I think that's a good. But can I ask also, in the military, because I actually don't know much about the military anyway, would women and men have separate, you know, changing rooms and areas and all that?
Yes.
They would be
Yes.
together.
Yeah,
wouldn't they?
yeah, they would, yeah.
But even so, on the front line, they'd all be together, wouldn't they?
Well,
Right.
yeah, I mean, there's no facilities on the front line. There's no showers. There's no beds. There's no nothing. I mean, you got
Yeah, I
trench.
don't think that's the place for females,
If
personally.
if I may, I actually watched a very good interview of a Ukrainian woman serving in the military, and
Yeah.
she said that once you get to the front lines, those kinds of problems go away very quickly. You bond very quickly over the threat of death, and everybody gets very, very serious very fast because there's really no time. There's really no time for that kind of thing. When the rockets start falling around you, you don't care what gender someone is. That kind of stuff does not survive the taste of battle, for the most part. In peacetime on the base, I could imagine there being problems, but in wartime, when the bullets start cracking around you, that stuff doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, but they're not all cracking around you. There's a lot of boring parts of being in the military.
Yeah.
And these are 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, and their hormones are screaming. And
I have no idea what it would be like to be in the military or to be in war. I can't even begin to conceptualize something like this. So I mean, I don't know. But I do think that in general, even when you consider the draft, or if we just have discussions about it, the entire world, we need a solution to the draft and to war. And we need to move away from war and drafting and so on. And there should never be a draft in the future.
well, of course, that's the idea.
Yeah.
We kind of are. I mean, yeah, there's obviously there's examples all over the world of that happening. But if you look at Europe since World War II, Europe for almost all of its existence was at war with each other. You couldn't go without Austria.
Well, you know what changed, don't you? It was the atomic bomb.
I don't know if that's it.
Oh, of course it is. Ever since the atomic bombs dropped, there can't be an all-out war. It's too dangerous. We're terrified of nuclear weapons being deployed.
Yeah.
Even
That's actually
even countries without nukes like France and Germany or Austria and Belgium or whatever. You never saw war between two European countries without nuclear weapons. I mean, you're not seeing Japan getting any wars.
That's right. Ever since the atomic bomb, there's been no major wars.
And that was by design, because America did something very good in terms of demilitarizing the world. Where I'm from, we have no military, just to say. Within the Caribbean region, we have an agreement with America that we have no military, first of all, and that they would protect.
You must have an army, right?
Huh?
You must have an army, right?
No, we don't have an army. Most of the countries in the Caribbean do not have an army or a military. The agreement is that America will protect our sovereignty,
right.
And in return, it's like trade deals. We at the time we agreed to trade a certain amount with America and so on, and they can also tell us what to do in terms of trade. So, but we don't have an army at all. And if you look at the history of the Caribbean, again, it's similar to Europe. Fighting. There's not a year that my country didn't like switch countries, and it's a complete chaos up until so you're right that it is the atomic
okay, let me just push back. Iran attacked Israel knowing Israel has an atomic bomb and Israel has not used it yet. And they're still.
But to me, the point with this whole thing is that America at that time created a very good and effective system by agreeing with countries around the world to protect them and to protect their sovereignty, and by creating bases and making deals and agreements with countries in terms of sovereignty. And this was really good for the world. It gave us a period of time to think, but Trump is just destroying it. So I don't know what we're gonna do, you know.
Well, do you think maybe that weakened those countries because they never developed their own capability to defend themselves?
They're not never. They actually gave up their capability. It was by design. They demilitarized, and that was, you can call it weak, but it's good for the world. We have less wars as a result.
Yeah, and these wars, I mean, there's nothing like World War I and World War II. This is where ginormous battles have been huge. Between Iran and Israel, sorry, but it's a skirmish by comparison. We've not had any kind of all-out war because everyone is terrified that it will lead to nuclear weapons.
Yes, mutual destruction is very, very useful, and I think that,
that's what Robert Oppenheimer.
I think we deserve some credit for evolving as a society. I think the nuke thing is definitely part of it, but I also genuinely think that humanity after World War
I think there's truth to that too, and I think that can be stemmed to evolution of human parenting.
Lloyd demands. I also wonder as well if because of the world leaders, like I know, for example, because I'm just remembering history, like Gorbachev and Thatcher. Well, Gorbachev in particular, he was very different to the previous kind of Russian leaders. Like he basically ended the Soviet Union. But communism in general, I mean, what a farce. Like communism, we just saw how terrible.
There has never been a war between two democracies.
Really?
Really?
Sure?
Is that right?
Yeah. Is that true?
Even in countries, and countries like Russia.
France.
Well,
that's an interesting point.
Oh, actually,
Napoleon was a dictator. Putin is a dictator. Xi is a dictator. North Korea is a dictator.
Hitler is a dictator.
Idi Amin, Mussolini, Mao.
Yeah. Pol Pot. Yeah. Oh, you've muted yourself.
We lost you.
Oh, sorry.
You're muted again.
Still.
Just unmuted you. No, you keep muting yourself.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I'm just saying dictatorship is the norm in nature. Democracy is very good and something that we created. But if you look at it like capitalism versus socialism, and people say capitalism is the norm and natural, dictatorship is the norm and natural.
That's true.
It certainly was historically, yes.
Yeah. So and while we may hope that countries incorporate democracy and change or whatever, we're also going to have to accept some dictatorship. It's going to be.
I don't think dictatorships are natural. I think hierarchies are natural.
Monarchies. Kings.
Yeah, hierarchy.
Yeah, historically, it was all dictatorships. It was all kings and queens.
The strongest.
That's not dictatorship. That's a monarchy.
Well, what's the difference? They were dictators.
The strongest rule, and we kill you if you disagree. So whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
A dictatorship is more repressive, whereas a monarch is just an absolute ruler. I agree that the definitions kind of mishmash together, but it's one of those things like it when you see it kind of deals.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar.
Yeah.
A dictatorship and a king and a dictator, and a sultan and a pharaoh, and they're all kind of supreme power.
Yeah, and what Trump is doing now is the same as dictatorship. He's trying to be a dictator within the world. This is not. There's no.
I guess so. I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't have that much of an opinion, but I don't follow it closely enough to know.
A king becomes king through birth. A dictator becomes dictator by force.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I was thinking it doesn't really track, because with monarchy, it's a line of succession. There's a kind of a structure to it. It's a hierarchy. It's not necessarily a dictatorship. Like with a dictatorship, it's more like, you think of the idea of a dictatorship as someone seizing power, whereas with a monarchy, it's usually, I become the king or the queen, and then my child, and then it's nepotistic, of course. But
the original point was that Thomas made that no two democracies have gone to war.
Yeah, that makes sense. Democracy, we're very lucky to have democracy. It's obviously quite what is.
It was an astounding, miraculous experiment of the U.S. to do that. We're not really appreciating how amazingly enlightened our U.S. Constitution was in its day. It's just an astonishing document.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just see so many problems with women in the mixed together with men in the
Yeah.
as in a military. It just goes on and on.
When did women actually start being drafted in the West? I mean, I don't, maybe in the US you guys would know.
What was that?
When did women become drafted for war?
Israel, wasn't Israel the first to do that?
I have
No,
no
the
idea.
Soviets did it.
Huh?
The Soviets did it.
Did they draft though? What did they do? I'm not
World War
sure.
II,
I'm
yeah.
not clear about it. Did they
drafted-
draft women at the end? Yeah. Of course, they were desperate. You know, a third of the men had been killed,
Yeah.
so they were pretty desperate. And the Nazis were coming, and they were relentless. So,
Okay,
so yeah, I mean, it takes an extreme though before a population is willing to bring women into the military.
But Tim, I really want to ask you, because you were too young to have been drafted in Vietnam, but you were old enough to know that the draft was going on and that you were one day going to be 18, and you didn't know when the war was going to stop. I mean, was like 14, 15-year-old you nervous about the prospect of getting drafted when you reached that age? Did you think about it?
No, by the time the war was already over before I was old enough to be drafted.
But did you think about, oh, what if it's not over by that time?
I don't remember being concerned with being drafted for some reason. I'm not sure why.
But your brother was.
Yes, because he was subject to it. He was old enough, and yes, if he would have been drafted if the war hadn't ended.
Okay.
But somehow, I guess I just never felt that, or at least not consciously. Maybe unconsciously I did.
Was there like any, not tension, but boys and girls, when they talked to each other and when they interacted, was that kind of always in the air? Was there kind of this silent tension about it?
Well, there's always been, see, men and women are innately in a sort of conflict because of differences in sexual strategies. So there's always been a tension and an erotic tension.
Yeah.
But there wasn't, there was nowhere near the hostility. Boys were pretty much just goo-goo-eyed about girls. We just thought they were wonderful. We just thought they were.
Wow, it's very different now.
Yeah, I know. We thought they were just angelic and that they were so wonderful and sweet. And so it was baffling when they acted like bitches, you know. We just had no way to, well, what just happened, you know? Because we just thought girls were sugar and spice and all things nice, and
which they are not. Sorry, I'm being really snarky. Sorry. Just thinking.
Well, neither sex is, of course, you know. So, but yeah, back in the old days, the males sought and cultivated respectable qualities, and females sought and cultivated lovable qualities. And that was part of the polarization of male and female. You see, another reason women were never drafted, and you know, and you're so right. Women Against Feminism. Can I use your name? I don't know on this. But yeah, you see, it is obscene for feminism to claim that women were excluded from the battlefield when that truth is dwarfed by several orders of magnitude by the truth that women have always been exempt from the battlefield.
It just goes to show that they're not saying it in good faith. I mean, it's so obviously a ridiculous thing to say.
Yes, that they can't really be fully on board with what they're actually saying. So here's another point that I want to make. Why were women never drafted? In large part because they didn't want to be. And one of the ways that women exempted themselves was by adopting this very feminine persona and dress and manner and makeup and hair and all these things. They made themselves maximally incongruent so when you looked around, who are you gonna? The enemy is out there waiting, and we all fear the enemy, and we need an army. And who are we gonna choose to get our army? And there's this little girl there with a hanky and a parasol, and well, we're not drafting her, that's for sure. She was so incongruent with hard hazardous labor and imprisonment and homelessness and so on. And that's partly because woman chose this persona. I mean, there's of course there's a biology.
When you look on the battlefield today, in terms of these Russia versus Ukraine, I know my husband follows it, so he sometimes looks at these videos and things. And I've seen there are videos of people on the battlefield just killing themselves, young men.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it is an awful thing to be drafted to go to war. There's no one who wants to be drafted to go to war. This is something that people kill themselves over. The idea that being drafted to go to war could be a privilege is obscene.
It's obscene.
There's no other. It's like saying going to jail is a privilege, going to prison is a privilege.
Right.
I mean, it
being
doesn't
homeless
make
is a privilege.
Yeah, I mean,
right. Sure.
There's no. If you want to go to war, fine. That's why I say, okay, draft women. I mean, I'm not saying draft women, but allow them, especially in modern times, with birth control exists. As long as that woman is on birth control, if she wants to go to war, by all means. But yeah, I don't think. I hope we can just not ever have a draft. I don't know. I hope technology gets us there, but at the same time, I don't even think technology is good, because then we're just living in this draconian sort of where we're ruled by
technology. So, look at all these robots. Look at all these androids they're building.
It's scary. It's
terrifying.
Extremely scary, because who controls this technology? The technology will get good enough so that no one will ever need to be drafted. The technology will get good enough so that wars will not have a human cost to the aggressor. But what about the other countries? What about the victims of war on the other side who don't have that technology? It's really sad. And I hope that humans can figure out a way to not have this happen, But yeah.
We're seeing that now in Iran, actually. Kind of. I mean, Iran can fight back a little bit, but it's very one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, of course, the U.S. crushes a little country like Iran. There's no contest, but as history shows, that's what Putin said when we invaded Afghanistan. He said, well, sure, of course you can go and take them out overnight, but now you got to keep it, and it's never ending. And so I'm talking out my rear, and I don't.
We are human. We have to think about this. Yes, America would be the stronger military. But it's like when we see parents beating a child, everyone says the parent is wrong. The stronger person is wrong. Why? Because it's not equal. I mean, as gender equalists or as people, social justice warriors, we should be able to recognize abuse of power. Not just because you are stronger makes you right. A parent cannot beat a child because it's wrong.
Some parents do hurt their children. Can I just say one quick thing as well? Because Tim talked about why women weren't drafted. I think also, and I guess Tim also touched on this, women weren't drafted also because men wanted to protect women. The idea is women and children first. So the idea of sending, as you said, this angel or this doll or whatever out to go in this big, horrible battlefield, it sounds terrifying, because the instinct is men are fighting to protect women and children. I don't support gynocentrism in the sense of like saying that, I do think we should hold women accountable and all that. But I think on practical levels, women, our bodies are more fragile. Women menstruate, like why that's something that has to be accounted for, unless you get an IUD like I do. But, women bleed every month. That's very, very inconvenient. I mean, this is slightly off topic as well, but there was this big debate about whether or not transgender people should be in the military. I don't know what my view is on that, but the thing is, people are looking at the practical aspects of it. Like a female bleeds, a female needs tampons and sanitary towels, and that's going to be very expensive. Men don't need that. You know, our hormones are all over like women go through so many hormonal changes every month. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, you know, because they're women. There's actual very serious practical reasons why.
Serious practical issues. That's right. So are we turning the military into some kind of social experiment?
It shouldn't be.
But it's not an experiment. We've done it before. It's happening right now in Ukraine successfully. Women served in Iraq successfully. It's happened before successfully.
Very small percentages, though, and
We
it's not
don't know
equal.
the ins
You know,
and
like
outs
in
of it.
Israel, their tour of duty is shorter. There's a bunch of differences there. It's not equal. The women get a lot of privileges, and
Yeah.
you know, so far in these wars, you know, women have been like 8% of the fighting force, but 2% of the death toll. You know,
There you
they're
go.
not being protected.
Well, I have to say, to Zara's point about men wanting to protect women, do you think the young men of the UK today would want to fight and die to save the feminist population of the UK back at home? Considering how they're
Absolutely
treated, considering them as saying
Absolutely
that young men grow up in, do you think they want to risk their lives for it?
I mean,
Well,
now
I hear
my
you,
experience
but
is modern men and
instinct
women
is
can't
powerful.
stand each other. Sorry, we'll talk over each other. Someone, do you want to repeat what you said?
I wouldn't fight for this America. I wouldn't fight for this UK. No way.
Modern women and men don't like each other. That's the big problem. Like everyone is so angry. You know, all I hear now is women complaining about men and men complaining about women. It's disgusting, and this is all because of feminism. It's feminism.
So I hear a bunch of people out there screaming. What they're saying is, so what's the solution? What's the solution to this? And the best I can come up with is, rather than seek unisex equality, we need to maintain balanced equality. So as you said, Zarina, it's, you know, throughout history, women have suffered their version of the human condition, and they've also enjoyed their version of the human condition. And same with men. Men more respected but less loved, women more loved but less respected. And there's been a balance. So why can't we maintain a balanced equality? Why do we have to have unisex equality, an exact sameness of equality? Why do we have to have 4 = 4 equality? Why can't we have E = MC² sort of equality, where the two entities on either side of the equal sign are very different, but they're equal because they weigh the same?
You know, speaking of that, it's actually quite funny looking at the balance of this screen right now. Notice the right male side of the screen. The two white men have this kind of greenish hue to our screen.
Yeah.
And on the left side,
and we're over on the right. We're the conservative
sort of
male supremacists here over here.
What are we, the left wing?
And over here we got the rose-colored.
Well, you guys have like a purplish vibe on your side. We have a greenish vibe.
That's quite a YouTube meta commentary. That's really
funny. That's funny.
My shirt.
I like the fact though this setup is good because it's interesting. We got those 2 white American males and 2 black women. It's actually a very good.
We're diverse. That's for sure.
Very diverse. Yeah.
Pretty diverse.
But yeah, no. I mean, I don't know. But I also want to say, by the way, just to make another point, I wasn't really listening for the first 15 minutes of the conversation because I was so distracted with the YouTube stuff. But the StreamYard, whatever. But I think, you know, there were cases of women fighting. Like the movie Black Panther, for example, you have these warrior women. And I think in certain societies, like in African societies, you have like the warrior women, the Dahomey women. So there have been cases of warrior women. I mean, is that because though, and I think maybe Tim touched on this as well, is that because women would fight when there were less men? Or maybe it was Thomas who said that.
Yeah, I don't doubt women's capacity for violence and aggression. I'm not saying at all that they're less qualified in that sense. They're physically weaker, and that it is a factor. But no, I don't think it's a problem where, and certainly, obviously, there are individual women that will blow away some individual man on a battlefield, of course.
Yeah.
So it comes down to what always comes down to, bell curves. What are the,
And I think to answer the Dahomey question, if you look at society, you can see that most societies around the world are traditional. Women take care of babies. Of course, you will find one or two societies somewhere out there in some African country or wherever traditional society where men take care of babies. That exists. We can set up society and do it any way you want, but we can see that the most successful societies, whether in Africa or India or Asia or Europe or the South America or whatever, have certain patterns, and those patterns tend to make up what we call traditional society. So traditional gender roles have been successful for a reason, and that reason is in nature. It protects children and results in the largest number of successful births and so on. So yeah, you will find places where women were the fighters. These will be outliers. I mean, because humans have always done things differently, and we will always keep trying. And we're a diverse group,
Yeah.
That's very well said. Very well said.
Was it Margaret Mead? You all heard of Margaret Mead, right? She's one of the preeminent anthropologists of the 20th century. And she always maintained it was a good thing that women weren't
Sorry,
in
Tim, I think Blueorange wanted to say something.
Yeah.
What?
I was just saying, like, at the very least in the Ukraine, the way that men between 18 and 60 aren't allowed to leave the country, but women can leave, and there's all these Reddit posts of younger women being seen in a nightclub in Italy or Portugal, living it up. At the very least, they should have to stay in Ukraine and contribute to the war effort in some way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's
At
what the
least
women
get
do.
blood on their hands to the extent
Yeah.
of working in a munitions
Working in
plant
the
or
factories
something.
or whatever. That's what the women in World War One and Two did when the men were out. But that's another good point, actually. During World War One and Two, that's very important. Like, all the women were out. They weren't just sitting in the kitchen. They were actually in the factories. They were working. And I think
They
that's
weren't
important.
required to do this, though. That's a key point too. They did it. They did a lot of that work, but they weren't required. They really should have been required.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They were mobilized. They were drafted.
Well, I know, but I mean, the women at home, they sometimes would work like at a munitions plant or something. But I think, to be fair, they really should have been required to do something toward the war effort.
No, they were. In World War II, British women were drafted into those roles. Millions.
That's good. That's
very
good.
Did that happen in Great Britain? Well, that's interesting because it didn't happen in the U.S. Okay.
Well, that's the contribution, and that's where women should be. Like, that goes back to this idea of division of labor. Women shouldn't be. I don't think women should be, fighting guns. I think women should be doing, like more suitable tasks because they're better at it.
It's called the WACs, Women's Army Corps. The WAC.
Okay, yeah, it just sends me. Thank you. Okay.
I'll post it on the YouTube. Just for the people watching YouTube, there's like a slight lag, so I'll post the link in the YouTube chat when I see this on the screen.
But they were nurses mostly. They weren't sent out on the front lines in World War I or II.
They were sent to the behind areas.
Very feminine, yeah.
Not on the front lines, but in the rear areas.
I know, but there's a big difference.
I know.
That's still important. That's the thing. Like, this is why I think what Jana said is very, very sensible. That women, this traditional setup in sense of like women are better at certain things, men are better at certain things. And I don't want to be somebody who comes across like I'm saying women can't be doctors, women can't be lawyers. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if we look at the way in which the world has gone, why is it that certain industries like nursing and textiles have historically been really, really female dominated? Why is like now, for example, psychology is overwhelmingly female dominated?
Yeah.
Is that care, social care? Yeah. So I don't know. I think women and men are different.
But to the point there, I don't think anybody's objecting to women being in support roles. They've always, that goes back to ancient Rome with women in support roles. So I don't think that's an issue. The issue really is the battlefield. And of course, modernization has changed things a lot. But I think there's still a battlefield ultimately. Maybe not anymore. maybe not so much. But I don't. But the battlefield's really that's the crux of it.
I don't think women belong on the battlefield. I've seen Game of Thrones. I think women should be down in the crypts because it's just not safe. I don't believe that. If I had a daughter and a son, I would say, look, darling, you behave like this, son, you behave like that. not all the time, but in certain things, like that. I think because I don't know, man.
Game of Thrones is medieval technology, which Women Against Feminism made that point earlier. The battlefield is very different now. There are roles that you can do that you don't need brute strength. I mean, a drone operator can be just as deadly, if not more so. You can.
Yeah, again, we're talking about about the battlefield, though, aren't we? Isn't that the main point?
Yeah, but you could be a drone operator from inside a building.
Okay. Yeah, I think women can do those jobs, but anything involving like where you actually have to fire a gun and shoot someone. I don't think
women can. Of course, they can do that. Obviously, they can do that. There's no question about that. It's just then, what do we sort of do with that? And I'm a staunch believer that if men are going to be the ones that are out on the battlefields, then men need to get the credit. Enough of this, the brave men and women out fighting the war bullshit. I mean, that's not what's going on. And
but it is,
unless it is. But I mean, if we stick with the standard model of men being the ones that are out on the battlefield killing each other, then they need to get credit for that. They need to get acknowledged.
But Tim, if you look at this picture, women have been in the battlefield killing, and it works.
But the majority of the time,
small percentage.
Also, this is the Guardian. The Guardian's like a very left-wing paper.
That's right. And they're dying to present women as GI Janes and warriors and so on. And that's why I brought up Jessica Lynch. She was a good example of where the whole media went crazy trying to identify her as the new woman who's a warrior. But in point of fact, she was no warrior at all.
But the warriors do exist. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but what percentage, though? What's the percentage?
It's not about the percentage. It's about the capability.
It is about the percentage, though.
It shows that women are capable of doing that.
It shows that some women are capable of doing that, but probably
minority
What about operating a tank? Or an ambulance? Or a Humvee? That's just driving.
Yeah.
Driving.
Well, tanks are a bit of an issue, perhaps. I don't know. That's close quarters for men.
And this is going to make me sound really sexist, but I think things work better when we kind of delegated and said, like, this is what women do, this is what men do. Like when it was, for example, a lot of women do good in clerical work, like being receptionists, or there are some things that I don't know. I don't think that like women and men, when we're not the same, I can't do everything a man can do. It's not possible.
Yeah,
I screamed this morning because I was trying to open my jar of coconut oil, and it literally took me like 10 minutes to open it. And I was thinking, I wish my brother was here because he just opened it for me.
Yeah. Well, that's why I object to unisex equality. We're not a unisex species.
We're not.
To be fair, though, sometimes those coconut oil jars are really, really screwed tight. I mean, even I sometimes put some hot water and,
No, I was like having a big meltdown, but yeah.
Was it a metal lid?
No, it was a normal lid. I get very, very distressed and anxious, like about 17 things every single day.
You know the hot water trick, though, right?
Well, there are studies that show that men are better at dealing with stress.
Yeah, they are. Oh my God, absolutely. Like literally, if I got I can't tell you, I mean, of course I can tell you.
Less than a minute, by the way.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Anyway, so let's round off, ladies and gentlemen. Lady and gentleman, because I can't talk to myself. I want to say I think this has been a wonderful discussion. I personally am going to lean with the view that I don't think women should be on the front line. I think that yes, women can be involved in the military in other ways, in various now I just thought of Arya Stark from Game of Thrones, but also she's not she's an outlier female. Most women are not like Arya. But generally speaking, I don't think women should be fighting in like 99.9% of cases.
Don't forget Yara.
Yara, Brienne, this is fiction.
Well, Brienne is built like a man, to be fair.
Sorry?
Brienne is built like a man, to be fair.
Yeah. In the future, they'll say she was transgender. So, what are your guys' thoughts before we wrap up?
Okay, so my take is just draft women and men. Don't draft anyone, but if you have to draft both, because I really feel that everyone should feel the fear. Okay, everyone should be afraid, and that weight of war should be on everyone. No one should be able to escape. So if we go into war, everyone is going.
Exactly the same take. Same answer for me.
I'll just close with one last thought that probably the best argument for women in the military is if you started shipping women home in body bags by the tens of thousands, that is the most likely scenario for putting an end to war. But I don't think that would happen, though. You see, I think if it approached that kind of level, women would just reactivate their exemption. It's instinctual, and I don't think women will never die by the millions out on the battlefields like men did.
I mean, Lysistrata came to a pretty good way to end the war, but that's fiction. Anyway, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. I will be live this panel again in 2 weeks, and I will be live again next week. I got on 2 guests, so that'll be fun. Stay tuned for that. This is The Rational Female. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.